Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping in to a beer from a brewer I've never had anything from before, so always exciting. Today's specific beer is a flavored blonde ale. It is by Lil Beaver Brewery, and this beer is called Legendary Lemon. It is a blonde ale brewed with lemon, vanilla, and lactose. 6.5% ABV on this one. Lil Beaver Brewery is based in Bloomington, Illinois. So starting with label art, it looks like, I'm guessing that's kind of their mascot, the little beaver, holding up a slice of what looks like some kind of a lemon cake. So, you know, with lemon and vanilla and lactose, that's probably relatively an apt picture description of what we might get into the beer. Never really had this combination of ingredients in a beer. I think it's going to pair well in a blonde ale, and I'm actually really excited about this. I think this might be kind of a dessert beer. So let's just get this cracked gently. All right. Get this poured out and see what we see. Okay, got a nice golden color here. I would say it actually looks more akin to almost an Imperial IPA color than a blonde ale, but it's still in the spectrum. It's just a bit darker than you typically see. Didn't quite get the whole beer in there just yet. Formed a nice big head. Yeah, very active. It's really kind of an orangey yellow color. It's quite a bit darker than your average blonde, but it is still in the spectrum. It's just on the dark end. So darker than average, but it looks great, very active in terms of carbonation. I'm expecting that head's gonna more or less just settle out of the way, maybe a little clean. It's very, very active. Let's get over for a proper sniff. Okay, that smells really, really nice, guys. All right, so the lemon jumps right out at you, as does the vanilla. And underneath that, there is this very clear malt backbone that smells very baked good, like almost akin to a Pilsner aroma that's coming through on this beer. It smells really, really nice, but the vanilla and the lemon are both coming through quite prominently in tandem with that malt bill. So I'm kind of expecting that, yeah, this might kind of taste like dessert in beer form. But it looks great, smells great. Let's just jump right in, see what it's about. Oh, man. That is delicious. I'm not disappointed in that at all. Yeah, this does actually rather remind me of dessert beer. It's almost like a slice of a lemon bar or something like that, or a lemon cake that's got like a vanilla lemon cream frosting or something on it. It's really quite bold, the flavors that jump out at you. So, oh yeah, the malt backbone really comes in after the intensity of that lemon and vanilla dial back a bit. The malt really does come through. So yeah, everything I got in the aroma, the malt bill, the lemon, and the vanilla very clearly are translated into this glass, coming through very, very presently. No question about it. So, first thing I noticed as I was agitating around the palate is just how really silky and creamy and thick this gets as you agitate. It feels more or less where I figured a blonde ale would, but it gets significantly more creamy than your average blonde ale, which is nice. It's got a nice lush mouthfeel to it. The body, 6.5% ABV, that's a little higher than your average blonde ale. But, you know, it kind of fits with these additive ingredients that they put in there. So maybe bump some of the fermentables up. And we know it's a little darker, so it could just be extra concentration of their roasted malts kind of also boosting up that ABV. In terms of the body, this is actually a nice full medium body. Definitely more robust than your average blonde ale, but again, we're looking at a higher ABV range and it's got additives. So very pleasantly surprised with how this beer turns out. So I'm going to jump back in, have another sip. I'm going to let these flavors intensify, think a little bit on the finish, and we'll kind of break down and talk about the individual elements of where they actually come into play and how they unfold. Very, very good beer. Immediate lemon up front. Got a nice bit of tartness to it. Nice bit of lemony tang. Vanilla, about a second or two after that, starts to come in. It really starts taking on this vibe of not just intense lemon, but really like a baked good or a lemon square or slice of lemon cake. Very nice. About the 5, 6, 7 second mark, as the intensity of the lemon and vanilla dial back a bit, that's when this malt bill really opens up. It is very biscuit or toast or crust or crumb-like. It's got a very distinct baked good quality to it, or like whole grain crackers. Very, very nice. That's a nice, non-offensive malt bill. Obviously, it's a blonde ale. It tastes just like a blonde ale should, but these ingredients pair well in this style. That underlying natural malt bill that's going into creating a blonde ale is a really good base upon which to build these additive ingredients. Lemon and vanilla together, especially with the addition of lactose to kind of sweeten it up, make it more dessert-like. A malt bill like this is exactly what you're looking for, because it's not going to be super bold, super pungent, or offensive. It's going to pair well with the added ingredients. And yeah, this is a really, really good beer. In terms of the finish, it is longer than your average blonde ale. This is flavored, and there is a good bit of intensity to the flavor, but it's not as long as, say, like a barrel-aged stout or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely significantly longer than your average blonde ale. Where it ends, there's a little bit of haunting lemon and vanilla on the back, and it's just a bit more discernible malt bill that's coming through on the back end. So you're kind of getting that lemon and that dessert side up front, and then it dials back, the malt bill comes into play, and that's kind of where it ends, with kind of malt bill dominance and just whispers of lemon and vanilla on the end. Overall, absolutely delicious beer. Really great first beer introduction to a new brewer from me. I am a big fan. I'm going to take my time, sip on this, count my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. So this was Lil Beaver Brewery's Legendary Lemon, a blonde ale that has been brewed with lemon, vanilla, and lactose. 6.5% ABV on this one. Lil Beaver Brewery is based in Bloomington, Illinois. So the aroma. The aroma on this beer was very pungent, like far more pungent than your average blonde ale. Really, it comes down to the added ingredients. You could really smell that lemon and that vanilla distinctly, as well as the malt bill, and it smelled absolutely amazing. Aroma does get a perfect 10 out of 10. For the taste, this was just a truly delicious beer, not like really any other beer I've ever had. Kind of doing a lemon tart, kind of lemon confection in beer form, and then putting it into a blonde ale is the base. That was a beer genius move from my perspective, and frankly, it tasted as good as it sounded. And the malt bill came through clearly, as did the lemon, as did the vanilla. Nice kick of tartness. Lactose added that sweetness, let the flavors really speak. It was just tremendous. Taste does get a perfect 10 out of 10. For the body. Body on this one was a big, full medium. Quite a bit more robust and heavy than your average blonde ale, but this is 6.5% ABV. That's getting dangerously close to kind of IPA territory in terms of ABV. And frankly, yeah, heavier, but it should be. More fermentables, higher ABV. It felt right with the beer. Body, I give a perfect 10 out of 10. For the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel on this beer was, yet again, another slightly deviating from the norm for a blonde ale, but I'm taking into consideration, again, there's added ingredients, and there is, a higher ABV to go along with that. So the mouthfeel more or less felt like what I would expect, but it was quite a bit more resistant, quite a bit thicker, quite a bit more viscous, and got very, very creamy when you agitate it around the palate. That's not the norm for a blonde ale. I personally enjoyed it, but that was really the main deviation, just in the mouthfeel qualities. But overall, well above average mouthfeel, gets a 9 out of 10. For the finish, significantly longer finish than your average blonde ale. Yet again, we're talking about higher ABV and a nice big bold punch of flavors in there, and they really helped extend the length far longer than your average blonde ale. Maybe not quite as long as I personally expected given the intensity of the flavor up front, but far and away significantly longer than your average blonde ale. Finish does get a 9 out of 10. For the head and retention. Okay, when I first poured this, the head seemed to form pretty nicely, but I knew immediately it wasn't tightly packed foam and was very effervescent, so it was going to very quickly collapse. And yes, indeed, that's exactly what happened, and within just a few seconds, it was essentially all gone. So it tried, overall, just average, gets a 5 out of 10. For the appearance, this is in the spectrum of a blonde ale, but definitely on the darker end that you don't see as commonly. Typically, they're a lot lighter, a lot closer in hue to, say, a Pilsner, maybe a Helles. This was really kind of orangey yellow, significantly more orange, which it's on the darker end of the spectrum, but technically still falls in the range. Set above average for the appearance. It gets a 7 out of 10. For the balance. Balance on this beer was absolute perfection. I would not have changed a thing about it. The volume of lemon, the type of lemon, the volume of vanilla, the type of vanilla, the exact right amount of lactose, the exact right amount of malts for what they put together. It was just exceptionally well crafted and an absolute treat. Balance gets a perfect 10 out of 10. For the feeling and the intangible, subjectively, I absolutely loved it. Gets a perfect 10 out of 10, which brings us finally to an example of the style. So, I haven't had too many flavored blonde ales, but this one was very unique, very creative, and absolutely nailed in its execution. Lost a few points in a few categories, notably the head and retention, not really that important. Sure, a little darker than your average, but in the grand scheme of things, for what a blonde ale is and a flavored one at that, I'm not sure it gets much better than this. Example of the style, I did give a perfect 10 out of 10, which brings the total score on Lil Beaver Brewery's Legendary Lemon to a 90 out of 100. So this is just a well above average beer, guys. This is one of the most really truly delicious and inventive beers that I've had in a long time. I drink a lot of different beers, a lot of different beers that are flavored in a different way, but this combination of ingredients in this beer style absolutely worked, and it was a complete treat to enjoy. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to know when our videos go live to YouTube, just turn on the notifications, hit that bell icon, and you will know right when our content drops. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.